Hello, welcome to the Fantasy Life Show, Week 9 Utilization Report edition. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great day to be great, and it's a great day to break down the mind of Dwain "The Rock" McFarland. We have blood, sweat, and tears, 9 weeks worth of them at this point, that go into the world-famous, critically acclaimed Utilization Report. How are we feeling, Dwain?
I'm feeling excellent, Ian. I am done with rest of season projections heading into this show. Usually I have like 3 teams left, then I got to do weekly projections, but no, got it done ahead of time. And that's including a meeting about, guys, I can't share too much, but probably a draft guide that we're going to be working on for you over at Fantasy Life. So pretty hyped about that, Ian.
Love hearing that. And I can tell that you've been, putting some work in those rest of season stuff, guys. We have some buy lows, some sell highs, all sorts of trade stuff to hopefully get those fantasy rosters right as we make this second half push into the playoffs. But first, as always on the Fantasy Life Show, it is time for our DraftKings opening lines. As always, breaking down the news in the NFL because Lord knows it never sleeps. But we'll start off with actually some rare good news. Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson said he is ready to go for Thursday and feels 100% healthy. Dwain, we also found out that it was actually Lamar who was the one who decided to remove the ping pong table and the rest of the toys from the Ravens locker room. So no nonsense Lamar coming back from that hamstring injury Thursday night against the Dolphins. Get your popcorn ready for that one. Also, no Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels had a good rehab session. He is expected to start practice on Wednesday, presumably putting him on track to suit up on Sunday night against the Seahawks. That said, Dwain, we did get a quarterback shift in New Orleans officially. Tyler Shuck will be taking over for Spencer Rattler. So again, we kind of talked through on the Sunday night review pod about Rattler playing some good football this year. Ultimately, you just got to think that 1-11, 1-12, whatever the record was, ultimately wasn't quite enough. So Tyler Shuck's going to be under center. How did that change your projections for the rest of the Saints pass catchers?
Yeah, rest of season projections changed quite a bit just because of the unknown of Shuck. Ian, like we don't know if we're getting Dylan Gabriel. We don't know if we're getting something closer to Spencer Rattler. So, I mean, I have to take it a little more conservative. Heading into last week when I finished the rest of season projections, we had Chris Olave as the wide receiver 16 because they were really in a groove. He's playing great. But after this adjustment to Shuck at quarterback, he drops to wide receiver 23 in PPR, wide receiver 27 in half PPR, 33 in standard leagues. And then we have Rashid Shaheed also impacted. He was the wide receiver 35. So he was that borderline low end wide receiver 3, now drops to wide receiver 40 in PPR. Pretty much the same for Shaheed across the other scoring systems because most of his stuff comes more from yards. Olave a lot more dependent on the catches. And then if you look at Juwan Johnson was actually back up to tight end 15. With Spencer Rattler, he now drops to tight end 20 in PPR format. So pretty big impact, man, across the board. Not as much to Kamara, a little bit, like he's sitting there at running back 22. So low end running back 2. I think he was 21 before this. So not as big of an impact to him. But like if they can't score points, right, and that starts impacting the way we are looking at that aspect, which I took it down a little bit with, Shuck's touchdown. So it naturally brings down the overall for the team. But it could be another Doc to Kamara too. Like it could look like the Browns, man. We don't know. It's honestly really similar. We have multiple players that are probably not elite, but are good that you want to get the football to. So we'll see what Shuck looks like. But for now, pretty big downgrade for Olave, Shaheed, as well as Juwan Johnson.
Hardly a great spot to start the kid for his first game as well. I say kid at what is he, 26 years old at this point. So not too much these days. But again, maybe, is there ever going to be a perfect spot? I'm not trying to do the whole Drake May thing from last year. Like, oh no, this is criminal to play him. I get it. Sometimes you just got to do it and say, we'll worry about ourselves, F the opponent. But man, Dwain, this Rams defense, second in the league in EPA allowed per dropback, and they've only allowed 10 points in their last 8 quarters against the Ravens and Jaguars. So hopefully Shuck, again, surrounded by these weapons that we do like, and they can bring out the best in them. That said, as we continue to hear, Rashid Shaheed, maybe even Chris Olave on that trade block and could be moved sooner rather than later. And November 4th trade deadline, hopefully we get some fireworks coming, but maybe hopefully for Tyler Shuck, they do decide to hold on to their talented receivers. Otherwise, Dwain, looking at some running back news, we had the Cardinals sign back running back Michael Carter. He is on their practice squad again. So I know a lot of people were getting excited about Band Night ahead of that matchup against the Cowboys next Monday night, but Amari DiMercado and Michael Carter are still there. So we'll be talking more about those ranking, so he wouldn't exactly be going super hard in the paint in the streets trying to land any Cardinals running back. Also note that the Chargers went ahead and released running back Nyheim Hines. Again, could be a similar situation to Michael Carter, though, where honestly just ends up being, a early week move to go ahead and get the roster right. The bigger news, Dwayne, is unfortunate injury from Monday night. Chiefs dominated the Commanders and everything. That said, it came with the price. Isaiah Pacheco suffered an MCL sprain. He is now considered week to week. So we have Brashard Smith, your favorite fantasy analyst, favorite late round sleeper that we are all kinds of hyped trying to see him make some big plays. And we also got Kareem Hunt, who just keeps scoring touchdowns and doing good things, but people don't really hype him up because he's not a rookie. He's a boring old veteran. How do you see this backfield split looking for week 9 and beyond, Dwayne?
Yeah, so we're probably going to be without Pacheco for 1 to 2 games. We went ahead and docked him 2 in the rest of season projections. We kind of played on the conservative side, Ian. But I think more of the work, I know no one's going to want to hear this, but I think more of the work's going to go to Kareem Hunt. And I mean, it's just based on what we've seen so far this year. In the game last night, we had 48% of the rushing attempts go to Pacheco, 36% to Hunt. He obviously had the rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown down inside the 5-yard line. And then we had Brashard Smith really in the same role that he's been. 14% snap share, 12% of the rushing attempts. So I think those numbers go up for Smith as well, but it does feel like right now the Chiefs have more of a specific plan for Smith. So maybe he gets to like 25, 30% of the rushing attempts, but I think we're probably looking at Kareem Hunt more at 55, 60% of the rushing attempts. They could surprise us and come out with more of a split backfield between the two. But I do think that Kareem Hunt has actually looked a little bit better this year. I get it, guys. You're still going to think that he's washed and all that, but he's really good down inside the 5-yard line. He's been their preferred guy there all season. He's had the majority of those carries, so I don't expect that to change. And I also expect like the long down and distance kind of pass work. I think that Hunt probably picks up some of that. I think he also probably gets some of the 2-minute offense. So things that people automatically will assume go to Brashard Smith, I think it's still going to be more of a split in those categories. In fact, like if you look at it to this point in the season, we have had Kareem Hunt on the field more often than Brashard Smith. Brashard Smith has not played a snap all year in the 2-minute offense, 75% to Pacheco and 25% to Kareem Hunt. So I think we'll probably have Kareem Hunt in that low end running back 2 territory if we are without Pacheco, which it sounds like we will be. And I think Brashard Smith moves into that kind of what the heck flex running back 3 territory. And then we'll reassess after what we see this week. I will say Smith's an electric player, and a lot of his value is going to come through the receiving game. The challenge is now you've got Rashee Rice back. Travis Kelce's looking good. Xavier Worthy still needs to get his targets in. So like you can design some stuff for Brashard Smith, but it's not like he's going to suddenly turn into like this big target hog, given all the other players they're trying to get involved in the passing game in Kansas City.
I just don't think that we're looking at Brashard Smith actually being trusted to be a normal every down at this point. We've actually only seen him play more than 6 snaps as a true running games, and they were the complete blowouts against the Ravens and Raiders when it was mostly mop-up time anyway. So still sitting at 0 pass blocking snaps for the season. Kareem Hunt's there at 12 or 13, obviously has a long history with the Chiefs. I do believe they trust him quite a bit more than Smith. So, hey, maybe he can make the most out of his opportunities. If we find a way to get 12 to 15 combined carries and targets, who cares if they're of the gadget variety? Just realize, guys, 38% of Smith snaps this year have come in the slot or out wide. I am with Dwayne, where I do think Kareem Bird, as boring as that might be. Moving on, guys, wide receiver news. Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin unfortunately his quad on Monday Night Football. Said it's, quote, all right, and we'll take it day by day, but certainly not ideal after we finally got the artist known as Scary Terry back in action. Also note the Steelers are expecting to sign Marquez Valdes-Scantling next week, so it'll be at least one more game of Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson being the Robins to DK Metcalf's Batman. And finally, Broncos cornerback Pat Surtain unfortunately expecting to miss multiple weeks and could land on IR with a pec strain. So it could be good news for Nico Collins and the Texans if he is back from the concussion protocol himself. So that has been our DraftKings opening lines. Now a quick word to our friends at DraftKings into the critically acclaimed utilization report. Big game, big moments, and even bigger upside this week. I have teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6 to give you a new way to get in on the action. With Pick 6, you ride the upside by making simple predictions. Will a player score more or less than the number listed? You put your picks together, and the more you hit, the bigger your payout. And right now, guys, there is an incredible offer. New DraftKings customers play just $5 or more on your first pick set and get $50 back in bonus picks. That's right. New customers play on your first entry, and you'll get $50 in bonus picks instantly. So don't miss your shot to ride the upside. Download DraftKings Pick 6 get on all the action. Sign up using my promo code FANTASYLIFE. Thanks to DraftKings Pick 6 for sponsoring this. Let's make the season one to remember. It's time for the utilization report presented by Kings and kicking things off, Dwain. An unfortunate changing of the guard in New York. Obviously, Cam Scatterbo will be missing the rest of the season, tending to that ankle injury, paving the way for Tyrone Tracy to reclaim his spot as the RB1. So we've seen some decent enough upside from Jackson Dart and the Giants, despite all these injuries going around. Dwain, what do you expect from Tyrone Tracy in Fantasyland moving forward?
Yeah, number one, boo-hoo for losing Cam Scatterbo. We did not want that. Like a guy that, like, his entire team loves him. You just saw the expression on Jackson Dart's face, and you could read the lips of what Jackson Dart was saying. This is a guy that the team really loved, not just fantasy managers. But we have to turn the page and figure out what does this mean for us for the rest of season. And Tyrone Tracy Jr., the nice thing with him, Ian, is the fact that we got a really good sample last year from week 5 through week 18 of what he could potentially do. And in this game, where we lost Scatterbo on the first snap of the third drive, it was very clearly Tyrone Tracy's backfield. He handled 78% of the snaps, 67% of the rushing attempts, 68% route participation, and he had a 16% target share after Scatterbo left the game. And if you look at last year over that sample that I talked about before, he scored 13.2 fantasy points as the starter for the Giants. To your point, we think that this is a better offense. We're not saying this is a great Giants offense, but with Jackson Dart, it is something that teams have to plan for. All the RPOs, the scrambling, just different things that he can open up with the dynamic nature that he has as a dual threat option. And when you look at Tyrone Tracy, I looked at his utilization comps, Ian. He had a 77 utilization score last season. Man, 33% of his comparisons finished as running back 1 to running back 12. So not saying he's going to be a running back 1, but it's clearly in the range of outcomes here for him. Running back 13 to running back 24, 62% of his comp. So most likely we have a running back 2 on our hands. There were 5% of these guys that finished as running back 3s. I did the updated rest of season projections for the Giants just before the show, and we did have Tyrone Tracy come out as the running back 17 in PPR formats. It was running back 20 in standard. So you guys can split the difference there for the half PPR. Still available in 51% of Yahoo leagues, Ian. So not saying he's going to crush leagues, but he's going to be a guy that you can start every single week. And I do think he has some sneaky upside as a pass catcher. This guy was a receiver for 4 years in college before he transferred to Purdue in his final season, where he learned how to play running back. And to be honest, looked pretty impressive last year for only being in his second year playing running back, understanding run schemes, understanding fits, understanding how to kind of layer his moves and bait second level defenders, all those sort of things. So expect him to probably continue to look better there. But mid-range running back 2 is what I would say right now for Tyrone Tracy the rest of the way in a Giants offense that we like better than last year. If this was last year, we'd probably be saying low-end running back 2, but on the Giants this year, I think there is a lot to like here with Tyrone Tracy.
Set up in a winnable enough matchup this week against that banged up 49ers defense that, yes, looked good against the Falcons, but man, made that Houston Texans offense actually look competent, which is pretty tough to do. And then was getting picked apart by backup Buccaneers wide receivers the week before that. So I started off with my, week 9 ranks, Dwain, which everyone can find a nice free article on fantasylife.com about my RB19 ahead of guys like Bill Krosky-Merritt, David Montgomery, Kenneth Walker, and Rico Dowdle. Honestly, though, I have them behind guys like Alvin Kamara, Travis Etienne, Jalen Warren, and J.K. Dobbins. I'm tempted to jump them up ahead of those guys right away, man. That would put them more so in that mid-tier RB2 category. So how do you feel? What do you think, in your first run, you might have them ahead of those guys?
Yeah, I think I might. Jalen Warren, I'm really bullish on right now. In the rest of season projections, he came out as running back 14 based on what we've really seen in 4 out of the last 5 games where he's been the full-time back on a run-heavy team where we like the Giants offense, but probably like the Steelers offense a little bit more. Obviously, it's Arthur Smith. So we'll talk more about Jalen Warren here in a bit. So I think I would have him behind him. But the other guys you mentioned, I have no problem having Tyrone Tracy above. Like Tyler Shuck with Alvin Kamara. That's going to be risky. So I think we could talk ourselves into having him ahead of the other players, but probably behind Jalen Warren for me.
You mentioned it. It's still available in 51% of Yahoo leagues, also closer to 60% ESPN. So if you are out there, Dwain, someone's listening, they have a chance to go get Tyrone Tracy. Are we emptying the clip here? Go get him no matter what in the Fab streets?
Yeah, you know what's funny is now that my daughter plays in a 6-team league, I've redefined empty the clip, because like if you're in a league like that, no, you're not emptying the clip, because like dude, there's crazy people on the waiver wire. It's been a real learning experience for me, being with someone that plays in such a small league, and I have to remember, man, there's people that play in all leagues and sizes, but if you play in a larger league where there's 12 teams, maybe you guys got 14 to 16 players on your roster, most likely Tyrone Tracy's gone in that kind of league. But if he's not, in that case, yes, he's more of an empty the clip kind of player. In your mid-range leagues, I'd still be willing, Ian, to put like 50% of my fab and like a 10-teamer, especially if I needed running back help, comes down to your roster. If you play in Zoe's league, you might just leave him on the waiver wire. That's how many good players are out there. But yes, in most leagues, he is a must add.
That's what I tell myself, Dwain, as I lose another season in my very sad 8-team home league. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, it's the league side. It's messing me up. That's how I cry myself to sleep tonight. But we'll watch the film and get better as always. Other running back news, again, Tracy, obviously the big name to watch for in week 9. But we do have a pair of newfound handcuffs on the waiver wire that also should be rostered, starting off, Dwain, with Browns RB2, Dylan Sampson. So Quinshon Judkins not believed to be dealing with a long-term shoulder injury referred to as day-to-day. But again, we know how these things go. Maybe Kevin Stefanski's definition of day-to-day is a little bit different from others. So our friends at Coach Speak Index are pretty confident Judkins will be back. That said, Dwain, pretty clear at this point that Sampson is going to be the next man up should Judkins be forced to miss any time.
Yeah, and I do think injury reporting going into bye weeks is even more tricky. Like the coaches really don't feel pressured about it, Ian. They say as little as possible. Yeah. We saw it with Lamar. We've seen it with so many players where, oh yeah, they'll be back after the bye, and then they're not. So we'll obviously be keeping an eye on practice participation after next week. Judkins left this game on the 7th drive. He was 2 snaps into that drive. So I took drive 7 through the rest of the game. So we have a 5 possession sample. And man, it was all Dylan Sampson, which was kind of surprising because really Jerome Ford has been more of the running back too since Judkins has come back. Now, some of this could have came down to game script, things like that, Ian, but man, it was a clear lean towards Sampson. 84% of the snaps, 60% of the attempts, and 80% route participation. Dude had a 33% target share. Like this dude, his targets per route run are absolutely insane. When he's on the field, they're trying to get him the ball. So yeah, with Sampson, if we did come back and suddenly found that, wow, we're not feeling as hot about Quinshon Judkins as we thought, I would have Dylan Sampson ranked ahead of Jerome Ford in the ranking. So he's a guy that, we've got the bye. You can't use him this week. So some of you guys have smaller rosters. It's tough. It's going to be tough to figure out how you squeeze Dylan Sampson on there. But man, if I'm the Quinshon Judkins manager and Sampson's out there, like I'm really pushing to try and get him. And if you look at what Sampson did, Ian, if Judkins were out, I think he would be a borderline running back too. I don't think we would have enough confidence just to say, hey, that small sample means going to get all that work in the next week. We know we'll probably see Jerome Ford more than what we saw in that game, but I would expect him to lead the way. So, he would have a shot at being a running back too. And if Judkins were to miss like another game and Sampson did perform in that first one, well, then we might be talking about, man, like when Judkins comes back, is this more of a split between these two rookies? Because both of them can bring different assets to the Browns attack, which, is a pretty sad attack. So don't get too carried away here. But the big thing with Sampson, available in 87% of leagues. So this is a guy that is available quite often.
And that was going to be my follow-up, like how excited can we really be? I don't think it's necessarily all on Sampson that he's averaging a league worst 1.8 yards per carry. The Browns are actually the league worst offense in terms of RB rush yards before contact per carry, which makes the fact that Judkins is actually still having a good season that much more incredible. But just, again, Dwain, pretend he's playing against a neutral opponent. I'm looking at my ranks right now for week 9. I have Kenneth Walker as RB24, Rico Dowdle RB25, and then Aaron Jones and Woody Marks. I think I'd be looking at Dylan Sampson pretty similarly to Woody Marks if, again, we were just dealing with this 1 week situation, which, again, we're in these leagues of multiple flexes, 14-team leagues. I can find a spot for an RB27 in a lineup, but probably not someone to get too excited about unless, as you pointed out, you do have Quinshon Judkins and want to go ahead and get the handcuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could talk ourselves into Sampson over a couple of those other guys just because we would realize that the upside case would be they do get to take over the backfield with Sampson. Like if he were to come out and have a 75% snap share, that's a ceiling that we believe he has versus right now with Woody Marks. We do know that he is stuck in more of a rotation. Obviously, any week coaches could change their mind. Marks has been trending in the right direction, but I think we could lean to Sampson over a couple of those other guys if we knew we needed the upside in our lineup, because there would be a chance that he would just come out and be the clear-cut running back one for the Browns. But completely agree, not a priority just because of the bye week. But if you guys play in these deep leagues, he's a priority in those, because you guys know how it goes. Like you're looking to find anything that you can get off your waiver wire. Like Ian, the leagues you and I play in together, when we go look at running back, there's nothing. Like these are skank leagues, guys. There is literally nothing. Dylan Sampson is going to look like a mirage in the desert. Like if you see him available in the leagues that we play in.
I was about to say, Dwayne, I think we co-manage, I don't know, around 12 teams together. If Dylan Sampson is on 12 waiver wires, believe me, we will have 12 bids in for him as I'm chilling on the treadmill tomorrow afternoon. Last running back we wanted to break down here, Tank Bigsby emerging as the direct handcuff to Saquon Barkley. Certainly don't have the same sort of offensive environment concerns, Dwayne, from the standpoint of, we know that Eagles can score points, and also did see their run block and take a nice step forward finally, and again, blowout victory over the Giants. That said, still have some of those issues that honestly have plagued Saquon Barkley this year, about the Eagles getting to the 1 yard line and giving the touchdowns to Jalen Hurts or honestly Dallas Goedert, and then also the lack of receiving upside, particularly with Will Shipley also involved. So how do you see this breaking out for Bigsby? Because again, we don't necessarily expect Saquon Barkley to be missing week 10 coming back from the bye, but just imagining if he did miss a game, what would you expect Bigsby's utilization to be?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway for both of these guys is we think they are the running back twos on their team. And so if you're going for clear upside as a handcuff, like if you're assuming they're both back in week 10 and your biggest takeaway here is, okay, which one of these guys do I want to stash? I would stash Tank Bigsby over Dylan Sampson. Like if that is the move that I'm going for, just because like if we did see Saquon Barkley miss more time, knock on wood, hopefully he doesn't, or if he were to get injured, I think we would be a lot more excited about the running back one in the Eagles offense, Ian, than the running back one in the Browns offense. Now, obviously, Quinshon Judkins has overcome a lot and looked really good. But when we look at Tank Bigsby, man, we had the 7th drive. So on the first snap of that drive, Barkley got hurt. We don't have as large of a sample because the Eagles run a slow ass offense, man. And so they only played 2 more drives. They were also long. So there were some plays in there. Sorry, I got a 3 sample drive on him. But man, 77% of the snaps went to Bigsby, 70% of the rushing attempts. And here's the surprising thing, 75% route participation to Bigsby. Now, again, this could be game script. They were leading the Giants heavily. So I do think Will Shipley would work in some more on passing downs if we had Barkley miss an extended period of time. But I very clearly think that Bigsby's the guy we want. He looked good last year in Jacksonville. He's looked good so far in his limited touches here. And the nice thing is, this didn't just pop up on us. The week before, in week 7, they benched A.J. Dillon for Tank Bigsby. So it does appear he's ready. He's now knows the playbook. And so I think that when you kind of piece it all together, of the guys that we've talked about between him and Sampson, like this is the one that carries the most upside as a handcuff kind of stash play for your roster. And who knows? Maybe we don't have Saquon Barkley in week 10. I think you're going to be pretty fired up to start Tank Bigsby and get him into the lineup. He's available in 83% of Yahoo leagues. I mean, we would probably have him as a mid-range running back too, maybe even close, maybe a little higher than that if we didn't have Saquon Barkley in a game. We'd have to be a little bit cautious just because we know Will Shipley would probably get some of the pass down work. But man, like Bigsby would be in a really good spot.
And again, we're taking our best guess here. Maybe they would try to do something a little more with A.J. Dillon or a running back to be named later. We know how quickly these things can change. But I'm with you, Dwayne. As things stand right now, again, I kind of mentioned that tier of Kamara, ETN, Warren, and then how I had Tracy behind him, was debating moving him up. I think if I was moving Tracy up, I'd probably have Bigsby right next to him, right next to guys like Kamani Vidal and Chase Brown, right around that RB15 mark. So again, you would think with Saquon Barkley leaving, maybe that could be one of the more valuable handcuff roles in fantasy. Don't think it will be, because Shipley's still going to be involved. And again, some of those aforementioned issues for running backs playing in that Eagles offense. But again, man, we know they can score points, and God forbid this offensive line starts to really catch their stride down the stretch. This could be a good one. So obviously prioritizing Bigsby over Dylan Sampson. Dwayne, still someone that we probably aren't going, again, too crazy in the fab streets for, though.
Yeah, and again, like we talked about with Samson, like if you do have Barkley, if you're the Barkley manager, like I'm trying to get Tank Bigsby at this point, just with all the injuries we've had, and you know how much the running back injuries are. It's just the nature of the game; they're going to continue to happen through our season. So it's not like you had to draft this player to handcuff them to Saquon Barkley. You're getting to pick them up off the waiver wire. So if you've got Barkley, I would be even a little bit more aggressive. But I think the best way to think about it, Ian, is like, say you're looking at your depth chart and you're just like, man, I don't have any upside down here at running back. I don't like any of the guys that I'm carrying. Well, in that sort of case, like you might be a little bit more aggressive with Tank Bigsby. And you guys know if you're in that kind of league where you're going to have to do it. A lot of you are playing in leagues where Tank Bigsby's not even going to get claimed. So you'll just be able to like swoop in and just basically get him for nothing. Your biggest decision will be like, I don't know who to drop. And I feel you. Like when you play in those kind of leagues, you're like, well, I'd really like to have Tank Bigsby, but I don't have a player to drop. But in the deeper leagues, yes, I do think that he should be rostered in those sort of leagues across the board. But if you have Barkley, he should be a priority.
And this is why I kind of chuckle sometimes at the zero RB bros who just base their entire strategy around getting guys like Tank Bigsby, which, hey, if it works out, then great. But it's always that implication that the Saquon Barkley fantasy manager, for some reason, Dwain, also isn't able to scoop up the best handcuffs when they emerge on the waiver wires. So just something to keep in mind as we, again, go through the positives and negatives of draft strategy in any given year. But guys, much more ahead. Did want to give a quick shout out again to our presenting sponsor over at DraftKings. Again, new DraftKings Pick 6 customers, play $5 or more on your first pick set and get $50 in bonus bets. All you have to do is download DraftKings Pick 6, get on all the action, sign up using my promo code FANTASYLIFE. Breaking down some sell-high running backs here on the Fantasy Life Show. Dwain, two players who, might be performing pretty good lately, but you have been in the lab and have reason to believe that perhaps the good times will not continue to be rolling. Starting off with, Chase Brown, back from the fantasy graveyard, was looking like one of the biggest butts in all of fantasy football through the first 5 weeks of the season, but a mixture of a nice schedule and Joe Flacco coming back under center has helped him average a whopping 7 yards per carry over the past 3 weeks. Only Jonathan Taylor and James Cook have been more efficient. Quite the turnaround for someone who was, dead last in weeks 1 through 5 on a per rush basis. So again, Chase Brown playing better football, Dwain, but the problem is he's not the only running back playing good football in Cincinnati right now.
Yeah, and as we talk through these guys, the thing to remember here is we're going to talk about a range of outcomes here in a minute. And I really do believe this is one of the biggest edges we have in fantasy football is if you actually have a way to think about a range of outcomes, because some people will just hear, sell high, buy low, and they think that, I just go do it no matter what. When we walk you through the range of outcomes, it'll give you an idea of kind of what price you should be willing to sell them at, what price you should be willing to buy them at. And it depends on like what your league mates are willing to do. And there could be leagues where going and buying Chase Brown is a good thing. It depends on how that manager feels about it. But we'll get to the range of outcomes here in just a second. But the number one thing, Ian, is Joe Flacco. That's the tide that rises, that raises all ships, right? Since we've had him back, we talked about the Bengals last week and what we're getting with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Well, it's also bleeding over into Chase Brown because we have an offense that's actually able to move the ball up and down the field, and defense have to respect those receivers with a quarterback that's capable of getting them the ball. And so that is going to give Chase Brown more advantageous opportunities whenever he comes to the line of scrimmage. So that's the big thing. The other side of it, though, is his role has decreased, man. If we look at him over the last 4 games, a 56% snap share. And so in week 6, it was 53%, week 7, 63%, week 8, 53%. So those are just the games with Flacco. And if we think back to last year, this was a guy when he was exploding, Ian, we were getting like 85% snap shares. It was insane. And then even to begin this year, he was getting 70% snap shares on the regular. Well, that's gone now because of the guy that you were mentioning that's on the rise, and that is Samaje Perine. And I can just feel people chuckling at us right now, but like, we're just reporting what's happening in the data. And they have really moved this to being more of a 55-45 kind of workload between those two guys. And Samaje Perine is taking some of the valuable snaps, Ian, on passing downs. Chase Brown's still getting enough targets to be valuable there. But man, if we break it all down over this stretch with Joe Flacco, 10.7 rushing attempts per game and 3 targets per game. So you're out there at that 14 to 15 opportunities. And if you're an explosive player, if you're making the big plays, if you're getting a chance to score the touchdowns in a really good offense, you can be a running back too with that profile. The question is like, is the version of Chase Brown that we've seen over the last few weeks, is it really here to stay? Because he really wasn't that efficient last year either. I remember us in the pre-season, we were talking about Chase Brown's value and how much he was steaming up boards. We're like, yeah, we like Chase Brown, but man, like the spidey senses were kind of tingling because it wasn't like this was the most impressive running back last year. He just had a huge workload. So if he stays in this role, like he's got to hit the big plays. So he has a 68 utilization score over the last 3 games, which I think is a fair thing to look at. It captures the way his role has changed, but it also captures the fact that the offense has been better over that span. He's averaged 15.5 fantasy points over those 3 games. His historical utilization comps have averaged 13.1. So he's already overperforming that. And guys, it doesn't mean that it can't continue. I'm just giving you that as a data point. But when you look at his cohort and we expand it out and we start to look at, okay, how did they actually finish in fantasy? 16% of them went on to be running back 1s to running back 12s. So if you have someone in your league that sees that 15.5 points, and guys, basically 16 fantasy points per game is the cutoff historically for being a top 12 running back. So if someone is looking at Chase Brown and they think he's back and they're really valuing him and they're willing to value him in a trade as like a high-end running back 2 or even a low-end running back 1, man, I'm trading him away. Now, there's 45% of his comparisons, Ian, finished as running back 13 to 24. So that means if you put it all together, like over 60% of these guys were actually running back 2s or better. So that's a positive for Chase Brown. But man, running back 25 to 36, 39% of them. And you have to remember, like the utilization score bakes in the efficiency that he's had over these last 3 games, because we're including his fantasy points per game is about 22%, like of the way the utilization score gets weighted. And so if those points were to downturn and we were just relying on the role he has here, Ian, he would look a lot more like the guys in Seattle, a lot more about our worries that we have in Carolina. So if I can move on from him as a mid-range running back 2 or higher price tag, I would be willing to sell. If someone doesn't want to give me at least that, I'm probably just holding on Chase Brown. If someone thinks, oh my God, I just want to get rid of him right now, and you can get him at a running back 3 price tag, you can get someone to give him away at a value commensurate with that, then I would be trying to trade for Chase Brown. So it really comes down to your roster, what you need, what your league mates are depending to do or trying to do. And again, you guys can check this all out over at fantasylife.com for free in the utilization report. I try to put this range of outcome data pretty much in all of the players that I write up, but I think he's a borderline running back 2, Ian. After we did the recap show on Sunday night, I was thinking he's probably back to mid-range running back 2 status. But after doing this research, man, we're looking at, 84% of these guys being running back 2s or 3s. I mean, I think that alone forces you to have to look at him as more of a borderline running back 2 the rest of the way.
And hey, he is playing well. Maybe the Bengals decide to expand the role, but so is Samaje Perine. In addition to what he's doing on passing downs, guys, Samaje Perine, don't look now, leads all running backs with at least 30 carries in terms of yards per carry. So certainly make the most of his opportunities as well. And an offense that's right now scoring points and honestly enabling both of them. Since Joe Flacco has come under center, we're talking about an offense averaging 29.7 points per game. That's tied for the 4th highest mark. Also racking up the 6th most total yards per game. So good stuff going on in Cincinnati. Again, just comes down to a split backfield. God forbid that Joe Flacco's shoulder injury is problematic. Do not like the chances again of Chase Brown continuing to make the most of his touches. So Dwain, I did go on Yahoo, their trade market today, to see some of the, potential price tags out there for Chase Brown. Obviously depends on the league and everything. Not saying these are set in stone, but I did like these 3 trades. Straight up Chase Brown for Brian Thomas Jr., Devontae Smith, and George Pickens. I think I like the wide receiver in each of those.
I do too. I like the wide receiver in all those, especially that's going to be assuming, guys, you need a wide receiver and that player is going to move into your starting lineup. I do think that we have a more comfortable outlook that we feel confident in for all of those players. So if Chase Brown's your running back 1 and you've got a really crappy running back 2, well, that changes the calculus a little bit. You might have to end up hanging on to Chase Brown. But if that's the case, we're also expecting that you probably have pretty good wide receivers if you're hurting that bad at running back. So it does come down to your roster stuff. And you brought up a really good point, Ian. So one of the things that I do in the rest of season projections that the utilization score can't necessarily fully do is you can think about, will the coaches expand the role for the player? Because this is assuming that he's in a similar role to what he's in now, but it's also assuming the Bengals keep playing this well. So like we've got some assumptions baked in here, but it's just a really good point by you. So if you are a Chase Brown bull and for some reason you think that this improvement is going to ultimately end up meaning more carries down the stretch, well, then you would evaluate Chase Brown a little bit differently than what the utilization report is telling you here.
And again, if you do want to sell high, probably a good opportunity since he did just finish as the RB5. The RB6, though, last week, Dwayne, someone else that you want to talk about, RJ Harvey, not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns against one of the best defenses in the, I'm just playing. The Cowboys are absolutely abysmal. And maybe accordingly, Dwayne, we need to look at this a bit more skeptically because as much as we love seeing rookies all of a sudden boom and have a lot of production, it needs to go hand in hand with an improvement in usage to really expect that to keep on keeping on. Wasn't the case with RJ Harvey last week.
Yeah, when you look at a guy like Harvey, you definitely want to think about the potential for role expansion as the season goes on, Ian. I think the challenge with that is you've got to step back and you've got to look at the current roster and see how these other players are also performing. And a big challenge here for Harvey is he erupted in this game, but his role didn't really change. And if we go back to week 4, remember everyone said RJ Harvey is here to stay. He's breaking out. He scored 19.8 fantasy points in that game, guys. He completely disappeared with 6, 6.5, and 7 fantasy points over the next 3 games until he got to face the Dallas Cowboys and did what he did this weekend. So his role did not really change. It was just the fact that it's the way those 2 games worked out. Now, again, having said that, historically, running backs, especially the ones taken on day 2 and day 3 of the NFL draft, do have a chance to expand their role over the season. But here's the challenge in Denver, Ian. J.K. Dobbins is also playing really well. We love RJ Harvey. The rookie supermodel liked RJ Harvey. Like, we want RJ Harvey in Dynasty. But man, listen, this is Dobbins versus Harvey this year. If you think that Dobbins is dusted, you just haven't been watching A, you didn't watch last year B, and you're not looking at the data from this year. His PFF rush grade is a 79.7. Harvey's at a 67.6. Yards per carry, 5.3 on a much larger sample, guys. It's harder to do what J.K. Dobbins has done than RJ Harvey at 4.5 yards per carry because he's getting way more opportunities and it's harder to keep that average up. And then if you look at the 10 plus yard attempts, I guarantee you, if no one looked at this, Ian, they would not know. They would assume that RJ Harvey is the more electric back. J.K. Dobbins has busted 16% of his carries for 10 plus yards this year. 16%. The NFL average is 9.5. And oh yeah, guys, he got chased down from behind last year, but he was doing this last year. So he's given them those explosive plays in the run game, 5% for RJ Harvey. Now, I think RJ Harvey's number is going to come up. He's probably been a little bit unlucky with that. When you watch him, you can see he's a really good playmaker. So the efficiency doesn't guarantee that Dobbins hangs on to this massive role. But if you're really trying to hang your hat on RJ Harvey looks good and he's going to take J.K. Dobbins' role, like you're kind of at an oxymoron there. Like you got 2 things that you're saying, okay, the efficiency is going to work against Dobbins, but it's going to work for Harvey. Like I just think we have to be realistic. RJ Harvey is going to be a really good player in fantasy at some point. I just don't think it's a lock for this year. And I'll just go out and say it, Ian. I honestly think the best path that RJ Harvey has to becoming valuable in fantasy this year is if they decide to get rid of Tyler Baday's role. Yep. Just give RJ Harvey those additional snaps in the pass game. If he got that, man, we would have chance for him like on efficiency, being in a good offense with the Broncos, a good scheme. We know we've got a coordinator that knows how to get the ball to the running backs in space. It would be a situation where maybe he could be a running back 2 in that scenario, like running back 13 to 24. Like I could see it. There's massive contingency upside. If something were to happen to Dobbins, like we would immediately have RJ Harvey as a mid-range running back 2, and it might not be 1 week before he was a mid-range running back 1. So it's not like he doesn't have any value. All we're saying here is that like it most likely requires an injury to Dobbins to unlock the massive upside people are kind of garnering and holding on to. And look, guys, we drafted a lot of RJ Harvey too. So we're with you. And so we have hopium as well. Like I hope RJ Harvey can like suddenly take over the backfield. I have more of him than I do J.K. Dobbins, but at the same time, I think we just have to be realistic, man. Like what if you had to put the odds at him overtaking J.K. Dobbins without an injury? Like what percentage chance would you give RJ Harvey with how well Dobbins is playing?
10 to 20, and that feels generous. Percent chance.
Yeah. I think like if you wanted to be a complete bull, it's like 30%, but I'm with you. I think it's like a 10 to 20%. I think it's more like a 10% chance. And we obviously can't know these things. And again, like if we did have Harvey, take over the role due to injury, we would really love him. So all I would say here is if you do have, and the reason we bring it up, guys, is like these become massive narratives in fantasy football. Most articles you're going to read this week are going to tell you to go buy RJ Harvey. This is going to be probably one of the only ones saying that, this might be an opportunity to sell high. And you do have to close your eyes and realize that if J.K. Dobbins goes down next week, you're going to be pissed. But you don't know that about any player. We don't know what's going to happen with injuries. And if that really bothers you, then just don't move him. And the other thing is this. When we say sell high on him, that means, you probably get somebody that believes in him already as a running back 2, and they're willing to pay you a running back 2 price tag. I think you profit more often than not if you take that trade. If someone's offering you like a running back 3 territory player, no, don't take it. Why take it? Like he's a low end running back 3 right now. There's massive contingency upside. So it's got to be someone that's like into these rookies that wants to overpay.
And it is one of those things where, again, I don't think it's likely that he takes over for Dobbins. Could he maybe take the bidet role? That'd be cool. And again, I think that would set up more so that Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, even the Latavius Murray, Alvin Kamara role that we saw work so great for Sean Payton over the years. That's exactly what we need. I'm just not even super sure if that's going to happen, Dwayne. Could it? Yeah, sure. But we just haven't seen the pass blocking, the belief there. And I understand, guys, we don't get points for pass blocking and everything, but it's not like NFL teams can just walk up in the line of scrimmage and know for sure that RJ Harvey's going to be able to run whatever route. Okay, defense all of a sudden shows a blitz. You got to be confident that you have a running back there that you can check to your whole playbook and things like that. So this year, the targets are, yes, Harvey 21, but Bidet 14, Dobbins 12. Pass blocking snaps, though, only 4 for RJ Harvey, 15 for Bidet, 29 for J.K. Dobbins. So again, I just think it's that trust factor. When you look out there, man, he is not the biggest guy in the world. Yes, they are finding ways to get him the ball, and good, he's being explosive with it. But for me, more so handcuff and more so just hoping that Bidet could fall out of the picture. So good stuff there, Mr. Dwayne. Again, a little bit of a sell high stuff here, maybe, glass half empty type of deal. But let's turn those frowns upside down, get to some buy low candidates right after a quick word to our friends over at Xfinity. Guys, if you call yourself a sports fan, you got to have Xfinity. All the games all in one place. And here's what you get when you watch sports with Xfinity. You get the Sports Zone, every pro football game, and over 1,000 college games, highlights, and alerts all in one place. And guess what? Even if you don't have 2, 3, 4 TVs, you don't need them. You just need one to be able to use multi-view and be up to 4 stadiums all at once. There's also the Xfinity Fan View, live scores, odds, and stats all in one place, personalized to you. And oh yeah, this will all be cast in extremely enhanced 4K. Xfinity Enhanced 4K, a simply stunning viewing experience. And hey, with your voice remote, all you have to do to get all this is just say football. Imagine all your football all in one place. Easy. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Note that restrictions do apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees are extra and subject to change. Buy low, Candace Dwayne. Maybe the fantasy numbers aren't what we want, but guess what? That was then and this is now, and we have reason to believe things could be changing for the better. Starting off with Steelers RB1, Jaylen Warren. Caleb Johnson really hasn't been seen ever since a brief bump in his role after the bye week. Kenneth Gainwell, yeah, still involved, but honestly had a late game fumble last week and hasn't stopped again Jaylen Warren from really taking over this backfield. So haven't seen a true boom just yet, Dwayne, but again, you do have reason to believe that could be changing.
Yeah, Jaylen Warren, man, over the last 4 games, he's been a near every down running back. And if we go back to week 4, when he picked up that injury in practice, it actually looked like this was happening in the 2 games before that. So over this span, man, 65% snap share, 70% of the Steelers rushing attempts, and a 12% target share. Now, he's only averaging 12.6 fantasy points over that span. Fine, it's usable. But if you look at his utilization score comps, he's got a utilization score of 76 over the span of games. They've averaged 14.7 fantasy points, Ian. So a full 2.1 fantasy points better than what he has done. And the other thing is when we watch Jaylen Warren, he also looks good, man. He looks so good out of the backfield as a receiver. He's been running the ball better over the last 3 to 4 games. Looks like he might be finally getting healthy. But listen to these comps. Running back 1 to running back 12 performers that looked like Jaylen Warren in the utilization score, 30%. So a 1 in 3 opportunity here that you have got a running back 1 on your hands. Running back 13 to running back 24, 65%. So if you're adding those two together, guys, 95% of the time, a player like Jaylen Warren has at least been a running back 2 or better, and only 6% of them have been running back 3. So that 25 to 36 bucket that we like to look at. So I get it, guys. Alarm bells are probably ringing, and maybe they should be because, there's 2 words we haven't said yet. Arthur Smith. Actually, we'll say 3. Arthur freaking Smith. Because Arthur Smith, Historically, he is notorious for turning these utilization trends upside down on their head. I'm willing to lean into this one, though, Ian, just because we were seeing it before the injury. And then now that he came back after the ramp-up game in his first game back, we've seen it multiple times again. So I think Jaylen Warren, man, looking at him as a mid-range running back too, and you can probably buy him at a price tag lower than that, and he has low-end running back one upside. So I am down for Jaylen Warren. Again, guys, use the range of outcomes to decide the price tag that you're willing to pay. And that's where I come up with that mid-range running back two. We're kind of cutting it down the middle. If you have to pay a running back one price tag, no, you're not buying Jaylen Warren. But you also could run into somebody that's got him as their third running back that's willing to give him away cheaper than what we are just talking about now. So I would definitely kick the tires on Jaylen Warren. Expect much better days ahead.
And I know, Dwain, I tend to lean into schedule stuff a little bit more than you do. And I understand the research behind that and to really only focus on it more so at the extremes. But man, we're seeing some extremely good schedule, moving forward here for Jaylen Warren. Okay. Next 2 weeks, not amazing. All right. They play the Colts and the Chargers, 7th and 16th in terms of PPR points per game allowed to opposing running backs. Not lockdown defenses, but not smash spots. After that, though, guys, we're talking through week 15, the Bengals, the Bears, the Bills, the Ravens, and then the Dolphins. Those are all bottom 8 defenses in terms of fantasy points per game allowed to running backs. And again, if you manage to get Jaylen Warren right now, could be what the kids like to call a league winner down the stretch of the season. Again, it is Arthur Smith. Things could change. But also, Dwain, as much as Arthur Smith does piss us off in terms of his, formational usage, all the tight ends, some of his rotations with running backs and wide receivers, this Steelers offense looks better than it has in recent years, man. Aaron Rodgers, as long as he does have a clean-ish pocket, doing his thing out there. And just, again, even if we do see the Steelers get on the wide receiver trade market, still plenty of potential for Jaylen Warren to go ahead and have his, stamp his mark, I should say, in the receiving game as well. So really like that call. Again, a nice little blend here of utilization with a good player and an even better schedule. How could you not be down with that? Also, how could you not be down with Zay Flowers? I think you stole my flow on this one, Dwain. I called it out Sunday night, but that's okay. Let's just both go get Zay Flowers. I love it. Talk about what makes you want to buy low on the Ravens wide receiver one.
Yeah, and I will say really quickly, like when you have a schedule like what you talked about, where you get matchup after matchup after matchup stacking up, I do think that you should care about that. Like that's an outlier, really good schedule that you just talked about for Jaylen Warren. And we know that his price tag's probably going to go up in these coming games with the matchups that he has. So you could even potentially buy him now, use him, and flip him later for something potentially even better. Like nothing static in fantasy football. Obviously, will be coming up on trade deadlines. But yeah, man, Zay Flowers, it was funny. I nearly pinged you because I started, I dig through the utilization stuff, and that's how I ultimately find the guys that we think should be sell high or buy low. And you're really looking for the guys that are underperforming their utilization score. And Zay Flowers popped up. I went back and looked at the history that we've had so far this year. He's not a guy that we've talked about yet. So yeah, I was like, yeah, Ian was completely right. He had already called it on the Sunday night recap. So good on you, Ian. But the big thing, 31% target share absolutely leads the team. Okay. Like this guy is an alpha when it comes to getting the targets. Now, guys, if you look at him in the rest of the season projection model, like we don't have him projected for a lot of touchdowns. Like that is a problem for Zay Flowers. So we are counting that. But in the rest of the season projections, Ian, he is still coming out as a low end wide receiver too. In fact, I have to have a talk with the rest of the season projection model every week after I finish the Ravens and say, buddy, you got Zay Flowers too high. It wants to put him at like 15. And I manually have to move Zay Flowers down. But the model also has certain things built into it where that kind of tells you where the upside could be for Zay Flowers. And remember, guys, there's a lot of players in the NFL that we say can't score touchdowns, and suddenly they start doing it. Trey McBride. I mean, we get these kind of guys every year. So if you follow the targets and you also follow the fact that Zay Flowers is an electric playmaker, that leaves the door open for him to actually do better than what I've got him projected for as far as the touchdowns right now, Ian. But if you look at him, he's got a utilization score of 74 on the season. We're getting Lamar Jackson back. That is absolutely huge. His historical comparisons have averaged 14.7 fantasy points per game, guys. Well, if you look at the cutoff for wide receiver ones over the last 12 years, it's exactly at 16 fantasy points per game. So maybe the model for projections is just right, and he is more of a high-end wide receiver too, because that's where 14.7 points per game would put you. Right now, he's averaging 13.7, so he's one below that. But here's the big thing, Ian. Here are the comps looking at the utilization score. 18% of these guys did go on to be wide receiver ones. So almost a 1 in 5 chance that you could get lucky here and have a wide receiver one. But here's the big part. 56% of them were wide receiver 13 to 24. You guys know how this works. We add those two things together, and you're looking at nearly 75%, right, of the comps actually finishing as a wide receiver or two or better. And that's what we want to see. Wide receiver 25 to 36, 24% of them. So we could still end up having a wide receiver 3. He could be more of a borderline wide receiver 2 type of player. But man, if you look at him, he's a player that I would be willing to target as a low-end wide receiver too. Like I would be willing to pay that price tag and know, yeah, there's a little bit of downside. I could have a wide receiver 3, but man, I could also have a mid-range wide receiver 2, a high-end wide receiver 2, and if I get lucky, I could still have a top 12 wide receiver. So if you can pay a price that's commensurate in that area, I think more often than not, you're going to profit. So yeah, I like Flowers right now. He is a guy I would like to be targeting in trades.
And it reminds me a little bit of Olave, where if you look back at, 2024, you would see more of this boom or bust player. Okay, there were some great games, but there are also a lot of unusable duds. We haven't seen that from obviously Olave until we started getting some actual booms as well. And Flowers this year, Dwayne, huge week one. Okay, 28 points. That was great. Since then, though, 14.9 PPR points, a dud in week 3 at 3.3, but that's the only just truly horrible performance. Okay, since then, 14.4, 12.2, 8.6, and 14.1. And guess what? Those last 3 games were not with Lamar freaking Jackson at quarterback. So again, we're getting the huge upgrade there. You mentioned all the target share numbers, and it's a player honestly playing the best ball of his career in terms of yards and targets per route run. So I love it, man. And honestly, again, just looking on the Yahoo trade streets on Monday, guys, the following trades were done straight up. Okay, Flowers for Travis Etienne, Ramondre Stevenson, Bill Krosky-Merritt. Probably not going to happen now after Monday Night Football, but you could imagine J.K. Dobbins and Quentin Johnston. Give me Zay Flowers 8 days of the week and all those.
Yeah, I think a couple of those are close, but I would definitely do it for Ramondre, hands down. To your point, you might not be able to pull the deal off for Bill. With Quentin Johnston, like I would probably, I'm with you. I'm going to lean to Zay Flowers over Quentin Johnston, based, and we're about to talk about Quentin Johnston here in a few minutes. Who was the one other, you named one other player though, that I thought it was closer
Etienne and Dobbins.
Yeah, so I think that one comes down to your roster. Do you need the running back or not? But if you need a wide receiver and one of those guys is your running back 3, yes, I would be willing to move on from Zay Flowers or trade for Zay Flowers.
I've been bugging my buddy trying to get Zay Flowers in my home league for the last month, Dwayne. Unfortunately, he knows that the big game is coming, but maybe that won't be the case for your guys' league out there. So again, Jalen Warren, Zay Flowers, buy low before it is too late. Much more utilization report goodness, though, coming on the Fantasy Life Show. Let's get into quarter 4. Again, guys, make sure you check out the utilization report over at fantasylife.com. Again, just loaded with all the actual nuggets you could ask for. And Dwayne does a great job, again, breaking down some of the bigger news items that, guess what, we've already talked about today here on the Fantasy Life Show. But then just a ton of also, useful utilization bites that you can find at the bottom of that article. And we're going to go over some of the best ones here right now, starting off with Dwayne Chuba Hubbard, someone who honestly, again, seemed like maybe he was going to have a chance to take back over as a starter. His utilization was trending okay enough following the bye, but man, not the bye, but him coming back from injury. But based on some of the Dave Canales comments, and then also just comparing his role these last 2 weeks to what it was earlier in the season, might be Rico Dowdle RB1 season before too long.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing for Hubbard is what you just mentioned. Since he's come back, and then you compare that to what his role looked like before. Last week, I mean, he actually led the team with a 59% snap share. They gave Hubbard more work than they had given in that first week where he was splitting with Dowdle. But his utilization scores dropped 6 points. And so what I'm looking at for all these guys we're about to talk about, I look at the last 4 games and see whose utilization score for the season has dropped the most versus 4 games ago. And so Hubbard was one of those names at running back. And then you talked about what we heard from Mr. Dave Canales this week, essentially acknowledging that, this playing time latitude that we're seeing for Chuba Hubbard, they're reevaluating it, right? It's under evaluation and it's just not close. Whenever you look at the difference between the two players right now, Chuba Hubbard is getting the money. So I don't think he's going to completely go away, Ian. But I don't know how you look all those players in your locker room in the face and don't give more work to Rico Dowdle, because he definitely looks better. So even if Hubbard is in the role that he's in right now, though, where he got the 59% snap share this last week, man, he's a low-end running back 3 based on his historical utilization score comparisons, which just isn't ideal. And if he loses any more work to Dowdle, man, he's really going to be a running back 4. He's just not going to be a player that we're very crazy about. Honestly, even having on our fantasy roster at that point will just be honestly contingency upside if we were to see Rico Dowdle suffer an injury and then we got to put Chuba Hubbard back in the lineup. But even then, man, he just has not looked the same as last year. And maybe the calf injury has something to do with it.
Quote from head coach Dave Canales: Chuba Hubbard has meant a lot to his team. We wanted to give him an opportunity following his half injury, but we can't ignore the fact that Rico has been exceptional. Again, for weeks, we go weeks, guys, and coaches don't give us anything. To me, that does seem like something. It was enough for me to go ahead, flip their rankings. You know, I now have Rico RB25, Chuba RB29. I had that reversed before I saw that quote. Unfortunately, neither is exactly looking great this week against the Packers. Also a very banged up line in Carolina, but again, definitely not looking good for Chuba. That said, Dwain, also not looking good for Hunter Henry. I ran the numbers, Dwain. Hunter Henry is on pace for, drum roll please, 673 receiving yards. Once again, under 700. Hey, just some things never changed, Dwain. That said, look, he's had some good games, all right? Was on fire to start the year. We love Drake May, but man, a little bit more Austin Hooper than maybe we wanted. And also, it's just an offense that, you know, taking a page out of their rivals' book. And the Bills, everyone's kind of eating in New England, and that's cool for the New England Patriots. They're killing it. Not as cool for the fantasy managers trying to latch on to a consistent player.
Yeah, I mean, his utilization score is at a 68. It's down 12 points in the last 4 games. So that's a massive drop. It's an interesting one because theoretically you would think, okay, like we've got Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte gets a few targets here and there. They don't really use their backs that much. You would think that there's actually still probably potentially some upside here with how well Drake May is playing. The problem is Henry has never been a strong target earner for his entire career, and he's sitting at a 16% target share right now. And so it just keeps coming back to bite him. And we see this year after year, Ian, even in offenses where they don't have anyone else. And so we kind of think, well, man, maybe he could get to an 18 and 19% target share. But this is a great example of when you hear us say targets are earned. And it doesn't, they don't just get fed to you unless you play for Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan. They do some wonky stuff with some of their players, but you're not getting that sort of treatment here for the Patriots. Like, you got to go out there and win. So I think he could still have, a nice touchdown season with as well as Drake May is playing, but just not getting enough targets. So yeah, he's a mid-range tight end too. I won't be surprised if he has a 2 or 3 week stretch where everybody starts talking about him like as a low end tight end 1 again, because he catches a touchdown in 3 different games. But man, the target share is just not there. And again, in an offense that really needs him to be able to do more, him not being able to do it. And we saw the same thing last year. I won't be budging if we see that.
A little bit of negativity there, obviously, with Hunter Henry and Chuba Hubbard, but we now have some positivity with Chargers RB1, Kamani Vidal, Dwain RB9, RB27, and let's face it, a blowout negative game script loss to the Colts, and then also RB8 last week. Been balling, and even Jim Harbaugh came out and said, quote, he's playing like a number 1 running back in the NFL. I couldn't quite squeeze him inside my top 12 running backs, but man, Dwain set up against the Titans this week. If someone wanted to put him in there, who am I to complain? Kamani Vidal looking very much like a consistent top 15 option as a position right now.
Yeah, I mean, his utilization score has climbed 44 points over the last 4 games. Now, part of that is because he didn't have a role before Omarion Hampton was hurt. So the real story here, though, is in the 3 games without Omarion Hampton, he has an 82 utilization score, Ian. And over that span, he's averaged 16.7 fantasy points per game, 69% snap share. His historical comps, look how good the utilization score is at this, 16.2. He's at 16.7. So he's a high-end running back, too, until we get Omarion Hampton back. And in fact, today when I updated the rest of season projections for the first time, I actually took some carries away from Omarion Hampton when he returns, and I did give some of them to Kamani Vidal because we saw early in the year when they had Najee, they were willing to give some of those carries away to Najee. And so I think that Kamani Vidal has played well enough. I don't think he's going to have standalone value when Omarion Hampton is back, Ian, but it's going to be enough that it probably will hamper Hampton a little bit, and the team could take it easy ramping Hampton back up. But I won't be surprised, like that first game back, if we see Omarion Hampton get more like a 50% attempt share, because Kamani Vidal, as long as he continues to play as well as he had, like they just won't feel the need to force it. So I had to move Omarion Hampton down the rest of season projections because Vidal has played so well.
I know we had a ton of truthers in the 2024 draft class and in the fantasy streets. So just a reminder, guys, never wrong, just early. Let's stay on the Chargers, Dwayne. Talk about Lad McConkey trending up and Quentin Johnson trending down, which, yeah, boy, are they ever. Lad McConkey, one of only 4 wide receivers, averaging north of 10 additional PPR points per game in weeks 5 through 8 compared to 1 through 4. But then Quentin Johnson is one of only 2 wide receivers averaging 10 points less than what he was actually averaging to start the year. Talk about the flip-flop and if you expect to continue.
Yeah, and you had a nice write-up on Lad McConkey in your rankings article. I invite people to go check that out over at fantasylife.com. Ian puts that up on Monday nights. But when you look at McConkey, it's pretty similar to what you just talked about with the fantasy points, but his utilization score has risen by 12 points over the last month. Over that span, he's averaged 18.6 PPR points per game. He's got a 26% target share with an 85 utilization score. Guess what? The man is good at football. And we talked about that the first 4 weeks, how it was just a crowded offense, but Lad McConkey's days are still coming. But people didn't want to believe it, Ian, because we get so wrapped up in what's just happened in the last few games. Now, having said that, we have to also acknowledge that the rest of the way with Lad McConkey. This is still a crowded offense. Do we think that what he's done over these last 4 games means that's what he's going to do for the rest of the season? I don't think that's smart either. Lad McConkey, that doesn't make him any less of a player. He is a very good player, but we've got Keenan Allen, we had Quentin Johnson flash early, and now we've got Oronde Gadsden, who we'll talk about here in a minute as well. So we do have a pass-first offense. We got a really good quarterback in Justin Herbert, and so there's a lot of positives here, Ian, but it's still going to be a scenario, man, like McConkey's going to get squeezed certain weeks. And guess what? It's going to happen for 2 weeks in a row, and then everybody's going to be back out on McConkey again. The point is, guys, the reason we create the utilization score is so you can chill the freak out. And you can look at what the range of outcomes are going to be, man. I have him right now as a borderline wide receiver 2 rest of the way. You want to make him a low end wide receiver 2. That's also fine. He's not the guy you drafted him as. I don't think we can say Lad McConkey is a top 12 wide receiver just because of these other dynamics. Now, the path for that happening would be if Quentin Johnston's breakout early in the season was a complete mirage. If that was just all trash and Quentin, and that could happen, and if that continues for another 2 or 3 games, we will move Lad McConkey up more because Quentin Johnson, let's face it, has not been great over his career, and it was a bit surprising how good he was over the first month. So if you're already on that bandwagon, and it's not just due to recency bias, which if you check yourself, it probably is just due to recency bias. But if you were already on that bandwagon with Quentin Johnson not being good, then fine. You feel free to go ahead and move Lad McConkey higher than like a low-end wide receiver 2. You can make him a mid-range wide receiver 2. But I just think it's a scenario, Ian, with these other guys emerging. It's still going to make things difficult for Lad. We love him. You have a wide receiver 2. You just don't have the wide receiver 1 that you drafted, in my opinion.
And obviously, Dwayne mentioned that Oronde Gadsden's emergence a big reason for some of the, again, just crunch target numbers here in Los Angeles. Let's talk about the superstar rookie tight end, Dwayne, someone who I have ranked as my tight end 7 going into this week. Matthew Friedman has him at tight end 8, and Waz, our expert ranker of all the expert rankers, has him in there as a tight end 7. So again, first in your hearts, also going to be the tight end 1 in your lineup. Talk about Gadsden and the rest of season expectations.
Yeah, Gadsden's really interesting. I will just say real quick, guys, Quentin Johnson did downgrade, and I screwed up the question. Ian said to talk about both of those guys, but he's a boom bust wide receiver 3 now. So he has moved down, and we have had a slight move up for Lad McConkey. So I do favor Lad over Quentin Johnson. I just don't think he's going to be completely erased from the offense. But Oronde Gadsden, man. So this one is really interesting because I wrote this yesterday, and then I did the rest of the season projections day where I dig in even deeper on some of these things. But yeah, his utilization score has moved up by 32 points over the last 4 games. That is absolutely massive. Since taking over the starting role in week 6, he has a 96 utilization score with 20 fantasy points per game. So uber talented player. Obviously, he offers top 6 upside the rest of the way. However, we still have all these other mouths to feed, Ian. And so I love Gadsden. I really do. But for him to finish as a top 3 or 4 tight end, like some people are kind of touting out there, and again, it's in the range of outcomes, guys. Don't get me wrong. But I think it would be an outlier. I do think it would be an outlier with so many other players, because what that would mean is it essentially isolates down to Oronde Gadsden becoming the top target for the team the rest of the way. Over Lad McConkey, over what we're getting with Keenan Allen, and obviously over Quentin Johnson, who have already moved in past. But I will say this. In this write-up, I said Gadsden, realistically looking at it, I think he's probably a low-end tight end 1, like tight end 10, tight end 9 the rest of the way. But when I did the rest of season projections today, and I just put in his 19% targets per route run, I didn't use the inflated number over just the last few games. I used his season long number there, gave him his routes, got him up to 83%. He came in as tight end 6 in the rest of season projections. So I will say I tapped him down a little bit from there to get him to tight end 8. But going through my natural projection process, he did come in even a little bit higher than what I thought. So I think it's fair if you want to call him tight end 8 to tight end 10, somewhere in that range.
The man, the myth, the legend, Oronde Gadsden. Even more good things on the way. And if they don't, make sure you blame Dwain for all that. Screw your reasonable projected outcomes, Dwain. Just give us the freaking answer. And that is Oronde Gadsden, top 6 tight end the rest of the way. That's going to wrap this edition of the Fantasy Life Show, though. We'll be back tomorrow with a matchup, game-by-game preview. And, of course, Dwain and your boy back on Thursdays to break down all of our ranks. So if you like the show, please like the show. And always helps out when you hit that subscribe button as well. So for Dwain, for producer Matt, for producer Kelsey, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, take care, everybody.